Thank you, Johanna. That lady that announces the recording is always so patient. So, so thank you for the reminder too, Maggie. And so we we've been starting to discuss these weekly and daily lessons in a different sort of way recently. And so we've been going slow and steady. And so why don't we jump in? Until last week, we were in focused on lesson 51, which is a review of the first 5 lessons of the workbook. And what I'm going to do is start sharing, and then right after that, we will go into a little bit of stillness and prayer, and I'll explain why we are not starting with that in just a moment. So, one moment, sorry about that. So it's sharing this screen. Let me just bring, can you see my browser?
Yes.
Oops, sorry. I'm getting used to a new system here, so I don't quite know how to do this. Okay, so wanted to spend a few brief moments on the introduction to these first 5 lessons and lesson 51. So I'll read some of this very briefly. In paragraph 3 of the introduction, it says, it's not necessary to cover the comments that follow each idea either literally or thoroughly in the practice periods. Try instead to emphasize the central point and think about it as part of your review. So that's a quick reminder, even though we'll be discussing these lessons, that's a good reminder to have. And then paragraph 5, you will yet learn that peace is part of you and requires only that you be there to embrace any situation in which you are. And finally, you will learn that there is no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere as you are. So that's pretty amazing. So with that in mind, let's close our eyes. And as we normally do, let's settle into the bodies that we occupy. Let's start to become aware of our breathing and allow the breathing to become a little bit deeper and longer. Also, see if we can sense where this body that we occupy touches other apparent things, such as our fingers and arms might be touching some part of the furniture that we could be sitting on. Our backside is probably touching a cushion or some other soft part of the furniture. Our feet might be resting on the floor or somewhere else. Let's become more fully aware of this body and what it appears to be touching, because then this allows us to distribute our consciousness out of our head and into what appears to be space. Dear Father, through A Course in Miracles, you have invited us to awaken and come back home, where you state that we already are. And through each of these lessons, you've also reminded us that even if a single lesson is thoroughly understood and practiced or internalized, that by itself is enough for us to arrive back home and rediscover and re-experience our oneness with you and all our siblings. With this reminder, we want to really tap into the peace that we are made of. This peace and love, which is really the substance of reality as you have created it, is our inheritance. We now ask and rediscover our inheritance. We ask for it and start to enjoy the inheritance that you have naturally bestowed to your children. We thank you for this amazing opportunity to be with our siblings. And we also invite all light that surrounds us, also in the form of angelic beings, ascended masters, Jesus, all our loving siblings, brothers and sisters that are not necessarily in the physical realm that we are experiencing. We invite them to this party. We really want all the input that we can get to help us internalize these amazing and beautiful lessons. And we want to be nothing but peace. Thank you once again. And please guide our discussion today as we go through these beautiful lessons. We can open our eyes. And one last bit of reading, and finally you will learn that there is no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere, just as you are. Okay, having said that, let's come back. And if one of us can please read lesson 51.5, the fifth lesson that is part of lesson 51, and we can jump right in. Yes, I should share that as well. Apologies once again as I get used to this system here. Gives us an opportunity to continue to be still as I stumble my way through this. Thank you. Okay, so here's the fifth part of lesson 51. I can't see everyone. If one person can just maybe raise their hands and start speaking.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think because I am constantly trying to justify my thoughts. I am constantly trying to make them true. I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted. I have not realized how much I have misused everything I see by assigning this role to it. I have done this to defend a thought system that has hurt me and that I no longer want. I am willing to let it go.
Thank you so much, Sharon. As we normally do you have anything that you'd like to say about this lesson?
Only that I don't really identify with that too much anymore after this being the fourth year in a row going through it. I feel like I'm always ready to turn everything over to the Holy Spirit because I know I don't know what's going on.
Okay, wonderful. Who else would like to offer their perspective, if any, on this lesson? And I'll need help with identifying who might be raising their hands, please.
Don't see any.
Okay, that's just fine. I'll add a couple of things, which is, this series of lessons, this set is really about identifying how we think about things that we have made up. We have this story going on in our mind, which can be identified as the egoic story. And because we get so enmeshed in it, we take it as being totally justified and real, everything that we're seemingly experiencing or thinking about. And then because of the nature of duality in our experience, we start to think of this and that, me and that, everybody else out there and me in here. And that appears to be the cause of all our trouble, including why we are essentially upset, seemingly upset by our thoughts, but truly upset for a deeper reason, which, as course students, we know is the apparent separation from home. Okay, I think this might be an opportunity to move to lesson 52. And before we read the first paragraph, which is lesson 6, let's do a quick glance through all the lessons that make up this review. I'm upset because I see what is not there. I see only the past. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I see nothing as it is now, and my thoughts do not mean anything. Any comments on this set, which is lesson 52, either in general, or should we get going reading the first paragraph?
Manu, I'll jump in for a second.
Yes, please.
I actually want to go
Would
back
you
to
stop share so that we can see everybody?
Yeah, and if you want to go back, thanks, Johanna. Peter, if you want me to go back, will you read or would you like me to share what we might be reading?
No, it's all right. You can stop sharing.
Okay.
I just, this just strikes me the insanity of the ego thought system. I am never upset for the reason I think because I'm trying to justify my thoughts. I'm constantly trying to make them true. See, I'm not really interested in reality. The next in lesson 52, I'm upset because I see what is not there. I don't want to see what is there. I want to see what I want to see, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to justify it. And it's frightening, to really to take this in and say, wow, this is how I've been living my life with this purpose. The Course says, the only purpose of this world is to make guilt real. And every judgment I have, every justified anger I have, every grievance has that as its purpose. And that seems to be the filter through which I see the world. And it's not, and the thing that really gets me is that this is my purpose. My purpose is not to be in the world and kind and loving, but my purpose is to be in the world and judge and find guilty, and so I can escape the unconscious guilt that has been running my experience. It's pretty awesome, and not in a good way when I really look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Susan, you're next one. You dropped your hand back down, so we can, in case you want to speak, you can still do that. Susan?
Well, leading off Peter's very interesting comment about ego world versus Holy Spirit world, reality, not reality, or illusion versus reality. I have been working for the last year on trying to resolve some PTSD with medical type issues. And this summary of these lessons is just like it is a gift from God. I mean, when you have an experience of something that's related to something that's past, it's over, it's done, it's back so far in the rear view, it's not relevant. You can't see what's in front of you when you focus on what's so far behind you. And it prevents you from being able to see everything as it is now. And the kind of thoughts that run through my head when I'm in a thing of PTSD, they don't mean anything because it's like pollution that floated forward, So for me, I just personally love these 5 lessons together, and what a gift they are. And if anyone here knows anybody dealing with PTSD, boy, give them this, just rip this page out of the book and give it to them, It's like, I think we should mass produce this for doctors' offices. So anyway, that's my thought.
Okay, Maggie. Susan, thank you. Maggie, why don't you go ahead and probably respond to Susan?
Yes, thank you, Susan. That was said really well. And that's my experience too. I have what is coined as complex PTSD and have been working on it for years. And I just wanted to share this based on what you just said, Susan. I had this moment where spirit directed me right to this, like you're saying, rip it right out and give it to somebody if they need it, right? I got directed right to this one day. And what happened was I had really, like last year, I cleared quite a bit of this trauma, but there's little lingering bits of it. And I woke up one morning and I had a dream, and I was very consciously aware of it when I woke up. And it was just, the dream was basically a recreation of like one of the most traumatic things I've ever experienced. And so I woke up and I was just feeling feelings about it. And I was, in addition to feeling those feelings, I was a little angry. Like, why did I have to dream that dream last night? And that has to be reopened for me. And looking back at these things, why I got to do that? Looking back at the past, why am I doing that? And so I was like, okay, Spirit, help me. And sometimes when I'm feeling like this, I really feel stuck. I just open to something random. And so I felt inclined to go just open up to something random. And I opened right up to lesson 7. I see only the past. So not in this review section, but the actual lesson itself. And as I was reading it, it just felt like Spirit poking me a little bit. Like, you're angry right now that last night you had a dream where you were seeing the past. Like, that's what you're doing constantly. I was like, oh, okay. Yep, I remember. And then as I was reading that, I then in that lesson, I can't remember exactly how it says it right now, but it says something about how you really need to completely rework the way that you see time. You do not understand it at all. And so I said, okay, I get that. Maybe it's time for me to let that be changed for me even more. And then the next day, okay, flip to another page. So I opened up again, and I think it was lesson 71. I think only God's plan for salvation will work. I might be remembering that wrong, but it just really reinforced for me again that literally every moment is that you're so upset. It's the past, it's over. And in reality, it didn't even occur. But look, the only way you're going to figure it out, the only way you're going to wake up to it is keep up with God's plan. Just keep on God's plan. So, yeah, I appreciate your share, Sharon. It was very relatable. Susan, I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's beautiful, Maggie. I'll go next, and then Robert, you can follow me. I wanted to share something also that's kind of related to PTSD. It's not necessarily a conscious trauma of any kind that I had, but a few years ago, around the time when I found A Course in Miracles, which was late 2016, or I should say rediscovered it, I used to feel some kind of fear that would show up in my body around the region of my chest. And on the surface, I would feel like everything was okay. There was nothing that I needed to process or figure out. But every now and then I would still feel this niggling fear that was mental as well as physical. And so oftentimes then I would connect it to anxiety or worry about what may happen in the future. And so then I finally discovered I had been practicing for a long time before that this tapping technique, which many of you may be aware of, called emotional freedom technique, EFT. And I found that very valuable. And then I also discovered during that time that when we have these traumas, of any kind of trauma that we have had, we basically end up storing them in our physical body and our subconscious, right? And so and somewhere in the course, it also says that our body is in the past, right? So what I discovered for myself is that the path to kind of truly freeing ourselves from this kind of trauma is to fully be present to the body. And then as I experience the pain or the fear or the thing in my body, you want to then use something like EFT or invite the Holy Spirit and release it, fully experience and release it to the Holy Spirit. And then as I got better at doing that, I was able to, release all fear, it seems. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that. And, if you haven't tried EFT, give that a shot. And Robert, you had your hand raised, but not anymore. Anyone would like to add to that or speak to it? Okay. So let's read through the first paragraph of lesson 52. I'm not going to share it just yet. It's a short paragraph. Maybe we can just listen to it intently and maybe read it if it's in front of us. So can we have a volunteer for that, please? Okay, Johanna.
All right. So that's lesson 52, the first review, number 6. I am upset because I see what is not there. Reality is never frightening. It is impossible that it could upset me. Reality brings only perfect peace. When I'm upset, it is always because I've replaced reality with illusions I made up. The illusions are upsetting because I have given them reality and thus regard reality as an illusion. Nothing in God's creation is affected in any way by this confusion of mine. I'm always upset by nothing.
Wow.
This makes me think of the work by Byron Katie. I don't know if any of you is familiar with her worksheet. And yeah, I've practiced doing the worksheet quite a bit, and after working with it, there's this relief, like, oh my goodness, I've been upset about nothing really. So it's I don't want to use the word, but it works like magic. It really helps to clear obstacles, really. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Robert?
This sentence here Nothing in God's creation is affected in any way by this confusion of mine. Isn't that great? And I think it's great given, our generation and our century here, that what we've learned before the Course in Miracles anyway, and maybe for some of us some other time, but before that, creation or God was affected by all of my errors and all of my mistakes and so on. And generally, I don't know about you guys, but for me, God was probably affected pretty negatively. And I was told what would happen if I decided to die and meet God. And it wasn't very good, and you all know what I'm talking about. And so that's why the Course has been so good for us, this whole metaphysics of the nature of God and his relationship to the world and to human beings, the non-relationship in some ways there is that relationship, but how the Course can help us be free of guilt and fear of punishment and fear of being not loved because of the things we've done and the things that we have become in our own mind anyway. So anyway, I like those kind of sentences, so I thought I would share that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's do the second paragraph. Who'd like to speak to and share that with us?
I'll read that one. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew was just a tiny bit before you. Maggie, you can do the next one.
I just have the book handy so I can read. I see only the past. As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon. I call this seeing. I hold the past against everyone and everything, making them my enemies. When I have forgiven myself and remembered who I am, I will bless everyone and everything I see. There will be no past, and therefore no enemies. And I will look with love on all that I failed to see before. Now, I do practice looking on everything with love, even what I see in the news. And I feel an inner peace. I'm basically happy and content, even though there were situations right now that are a little hard to handle or deal with, but I don't see how my loving and offering peace to the world has really made a dent in what I see in the news, and that confuses me a little bit, but I keep on plugging. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I have a few things to say to that. One is that obviously you found the peace, and your salvation or my salvation is all that is needed for the world to find its salvation, even though it may not seem to be what's happening. And then, if we go maybe outside the metaphysics of the Course a little bit and think of, more New Age, and maybe it's not really outside the realm of the Course either. So our consciousness is obviously connected to everything. We are one mind. And if you hadn't found your peace, if we all hadn't started to find our peace, imagine how much worse things would look out there. So I think you've had an amazing impact already. We just don't know it from our vantage point. And then there was a slightly different comment I wanted to make, so I'll hold that thought, because I think Sharon raised her hand after hearing you. Sharon, you want to go next?
Mute myself. Yeah, my thought when you said that, Robert, was I don't think we can ever make a dent in the world we see. We can only make a dent in our own mind. And since our minds are connected, that's really all we need to do. And that's the challenge, is making that dent in our own mind. So that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. So, Andrew, I'm sure you're not disagreeing with any of this.
No, I don't disagree with it, but I still feel a lot of empathy for like people in Ukraine and in Turkey where the earthquake happened and all that.
Yeah, that's our opportunity. Okay, so Robert, you still have your hand up. Did you mean to raise? Is this from before? Just wanted to check. Okay, so Keith, you are next.
Oh, when I was thinking about the condition of the world, I was thinking of to me a parallel in what Wapnick said, something to the effect of you could have physical cancer but still be at peace. So it seems to me the world could not improve and we could still be at peace. Maybe, sort of.
Yep, and this harks back to the paragraph in the introduction that says, and then finally you will learn that you are and your peace are everywhere. It doesn't say your peace is everywhere, it says you are everywhere, which is the most mind-boggling thing. It's a mystical experience that we can enjoy. And that's what I thought of when I read this lesson. It's, as it said, as I look about, I condemn the world I look upon, is because we think of it as the other. We don't view it as being a part of us. So, this is me, that's the monitor. So it's outside of me. And even though I may not be condemning the monitor, but just by experiencing it as other than myself, that's a judgment, that's a condemnation. And so that's why the path to becoming one with everything is the last sentence, which is, and I will look with love on all that I failed to see before, or how I failed to see it. And so we can only love that which is a part of us at the end of the day. Okay, let's do 52.3. Maggie, would you please read that for us?
Sure. So lesson 8, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I see only my own thoughts, and my mind is preoccupied with the past. What, then, can I see as it is? Let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Let me understand that I'm trying to use time against God. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I am giving up nothing.
Would please expound on that further for us, Maggie?
Sure. That sentence, let me understand that I'm trying to use time against God, is one that I feel very aware of in my own experience. Just the desire to put the past in front of myself so as not to see what really is. These statements are ones that really did not land for me as an early student when I was first reading them. I could not comprehend, but now I've had the distinct experience of feeling like, no, I'm not ready. I'm going to spend more time here, even as part of me hates Psychoplanet and wants to be gone. So that really just speaks to me. And I love the reminders, though, like Robert pointed out in the previous one, like that it doesn't matter, though. It's okay. Go ahead and go and use that time against God all you want to. Like, it's not real. It's not affecting anything in reality. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, that particular sentence really stood out for me too. And it reminds us of the fact that we chose this journey, this apparent journey, to get away from reality. Juan, please unmute and speak.
Okay, yes. What occurs to me when I listen to this is my mind. And I think there are two minds we are talking about here. There is the mind that we made. There is the mind that it's the wrong thought system, and then there is the mind that is the mind of God. So when I see only my own thoughts, I am in that artificial mind that I made. And when my mind is preoccupied with the past, I am in that artificial mind, my own thought system that I have made to replace the mind of God. And this thought system, the thoughts of God. And that's, again, just what came to my mind is the distinction between those two minds. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. That's beautiful. And when the Course says, I see only the past, if we really examine our thoughts, even if we are thinking about the present, or if we are trying to understand what the future might look like, even then, all those thoughts are of the past. We cannot actually think of the future. We cannot think of the present, because you can either be present or you can think about it. And so all thoughts are of the past. And we are always seemingly preoccupied with those until we are not.
And Manu, just to jump right on it and add to it, that which seems to be the present currently is actually the past.
Yep. So just a quick reminder that we are now participating, in a manner of speaking, in the holy instant. We are here, we are at peace, we are looking at each other in loving ways and enjoying this as it appears to occur. Keith?
I was just offering to read next.
All right, beautiful. Please do that.
I see nothing as it is now. If I see nothing as it is now, it can truly be said that I see nothing. If I can see only what is now. I can see only what is now. The choice is not whether to see the past or present. The choice is merely whether to see or not. What I have chosen to see has cost me vision. Now I would choose again that I may see. Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind. That's beautiful, actually. Thank you, Keith. Andrew?
Yes, something comes into my mind. We're not seeing with vision. So what we're doing is just thinking, and our thoughts seem to be things, but they're just thoughts. Everything that seems physical in the world, the whole world in the universe, is only thought. So we're thinking with the ego mind, like Juan had said before. We're thinking with the the wrong mind, and that gives us all the experience of the physical. And if we could just totally stop thinking, then we could possibly experience the now and oneness.
Thank
That's
you
just
so
a thought.
much.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Juan?
Yeah, I have to say that what I was going to say, Andrew said it, so I need not to say it any further. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Okay, Susan.
So I wanted to promote the idea again of taking quiet space regularly, going into stillness where there are fewer and fewer thoughts, and then there are no thoughts, because each one of us can do that. And that's a very powerful mechanism. I feel that I don't want to say action, but that habit of meditating regularly has put me in a position to be able to be very open to receive a lot of the content that's in A Course in Miracles, because it resonates so beautifully with the stillness that is in all of us, that is our natural state of being when we get outside the ego thought system, the busy mind, and all that thinking. It's a beautiful space, you know? So join me in meditating. Join me in meditating. I think I've said before, the group I meditate with in the evenings, they're between 2,000 and 4,000 people every night from around the world joining their minds, joining their quiet, still minds for the benefit of us all one. So I just wanted to put a plug in, I guess, for meditation.
It's beautiful as well. And any thought like that always reminds me of one of my favorite paragraphs from chapter 15, which I would love to read before going to those who have raised their hands. The chapter is called The Holy Instant. And then it says the two uses of time. Can you imagine what it means to have no cares, no worries, no anxieties, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time? Yet that is what time is for, to learn just that and nothing more. God's teacher cannot be satisfied with his teaching until it constitutes all your learning. Quick comment based on what you said, Susan. You said that, when we are meditating and we're in that peace, we are essentially reminded of who we really are in that peace and stillness, right? And that's what it means to learn. So God's teacher cannot be satisfied with his teaching until it constitutes all your learning. He has not fulfilled his teaching function until you have become such a consistent learner that you learn only of him. When this has happened, you will no longer need a teacher or time in which to learn. Maggie?
Thank you for reading that, Manu. That's really very relevant and lovely. And Susan, I just felt like you said something so profound. And so I just wanted to just like re-emphasize it for myself, I guess. Just that the experience is in all of us to find, right? And like all the little points and sentences that we do get hung up on and that we talk about together and go, I don't understand that one, or I'm not sure how that works. It's like, if you can just go beyond all of that and go into that quiet center, I find there tends to be experiences in my inner world that make sense of it for me in a way that can't quite then be be put to words and necessarily even be shared with another. And that's okay, right? Because they're so personalized. And so, yeah, I just really loved what you said. And I love that so true about the Course is that you don't need to be studying it. You don't need to be agonizing over theory. It's really about that inner experience it's directing us towards. So thank you.
Sharon, you're next.
Okay, I was just curious, Susan, is that group, is it a group of just meditators or is it a group of course students meditating together?
This is a group of people all trained in transcendental meditation, and it's coordinated through transcendental the TM centers around the world.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, who would like to read the next paragraph, which is 52.5 on the 10th lesson, workbook lesson?
I can do that.
Okay, please.
All right. My thoughts do not mean anything. That's the one, right?
Yes, please.
I have no private thoughts, yet it is only private thoughts of which I am aware. What can these thoughts mean? They do not exist, and so they mean nothing. Yet my mind is part of creation and part of its creator. Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe than to obscure all that is really mine with my pitiful and meaningless private thoughts?
Juan, would you like to add to that, what you just read?
I don't think I can add anything to that.
Robert? Thank you, Juan.
That was quick. Okay. Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe? Oh, no. Yet my mind is part of creation and part of its creator. To me, I just want to share my understanding of the structural issues involved here. And that is the issue of the mind that's using its body now. To me, the Course in Miracles would call that the separated mind of God's Son. And that separated mind of God's Son is split between the ego and the Holy Spirit, which ultimately amounts to, first of all, a foundation for the thought system, which is a self I made called the ego, symbolized by the body, and the self God created, which is represented in my mind by the Holy Spirit, which is a true thought of what my mind is, that it's part of God's and one with it. The other thought system, the other thought system consists of all kinds of the false ideas based on the idea that I as a mind am separate. As a matter of fact, based on the idea that I as a mind am a body. And so when he says, my mind is part of creation and part of its creator, I think that's what that sentence would mean. That the mind that is using this body is a split off part of the mind of Christ and therefore part of God. I just wanted to share that. It's a structural issue.
Yeah, Robert, that definitely makes sense, because that's the invitation we have, is to go back and join with that mind.
Yes.
And
right.
in a sense, stop the attention that we are paying to this apparent world that we have created.
Yes, very good. That's the thing that goes back when all these sentences about returning. Yeah, that's what goes back, that part that's split off. The one when the mind as God created it requested special favor, and God did not give it, and it demanded it. And then it says the peace of God's Son was shattered. That peace is its oneness with the Father. And that's the part that's split off. When the peace of God's Son was shattered. That's in 13:3, paragraph 10.
Thank you. So in the second sentence of this paragraph, it says, yet it is only private thoughts of which I am aware. What is it saying exactly?
Those are thoughts that you're not thinking with God. You know, they're yours. They're mine. You know, I'm special, separate, different. They're my thoughts. They're not thoughts that I share with others. If they're private, I guess that's what he means. I'm not sharing them with others. If I share these thoughts with others, then our minds are one. And they're not private thoughts anymore. As he says, thoughts increase by being given away. The more I believe in them, the stronger they become, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, that's what I would say the private means, that they're minds that I'm not sharing with God and therefore not sharing them with other people either.
Yes, thank you. Very helpful. We might want to do one more segment in the next lesson, 53. One?
Yes, I just want, I remember that at some point we are reminded that the thoughts that we think are not real thoughts, but are images of the past. And that's why my thoughts do not mean anything. So when I'm thinking, I'm not, the only way I would think is to think with God and to extend the thoughts of God. When I'm not doing that and I'm thinking, I'm just image making things from the past. So
Yes,
that's what came to mind.
Thank you. Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, just maybe to help a little bit answer the question that you had, what can these thoughts mean? They do not exist, so they mean nothing. So it's like the Course says, this world is nothing. It's not real. It's a thought, and even that thought apparently doesn't exist because the only real thoughts are thoughts we think with God. It's a little bit hard to really understand, but all this world doesn't exist, and our thoughts that we think are related to the world, they're not real thoughts and they don't exist. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. Johanna?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It does help. Yeah. The way I like to think about the word thoughts is that when the private thoughts that it talks about here, the ego mind thoughts, I think of regurgitations of the past. It doesn't really sound like a nice word, regurgitations, and they're not shared, and that's why they're not real. And so it helps me to think of the ego thoughts of regurgitations. I go like, nah, I don't want that. And the thoughts of God, I think of as inspirations. And so whenever the course speaks of thoughts, I try to be aware in my mind, is the Course talking about regurgitations here, or is it talking about inspirations? And if I keep that difference in my mind, it makes it much clearer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Robert, is your hand up afresh?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, a couple things. The first one is I like to think of thought. You know, the word thought really is a thing thinked, and that's an idea. Okay, so the Course says everything is an idea. So now we got everything down. We understand everything. It's an idea, right? The second point was the idea of thinking with God. Sometimes that can seem to be confusing. And I think for the Course, that refers to two different things based on the fundamental distinction that it makes between knowledge and perception. And that is when we think with God, what we're doing is co-creating with God. And when we think with God here, we're thinking with the Holy Spirit. In other words, the mind that is thinking is identified with the Holy Spirit. In other words, the holy thought of what it is, the thought of itself as one with God that is holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. That's what it means to be holy, basically, metaphysically, that your mind is part of God's. And it's that mind that you're thinking it with while you're using a body still at the spirit, bodily level of experience or the perceptual level of experience, that when you're thinking with God, you're thinking that God is God, the Holy Spirit, rather than God the Father, which we would do when we are pure minds as He created us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Maggie, you may go next, and then we'll do a short prayer.
Yeah, I'll be real brief to Johanna. I liked that regurgitations, and it was just, I was laughing to myself a little bit, and I thought I would share out loud. It's so fitting, I feel, because oftentimes those, those private thoughts or ego thoughts, as I think of them usually, it's like they're kind of like oh, so it's almost like it's got that like kind of feel to it, like I am regurgitating something. And like the inspired thoughts, I mean, they feel so different. There's so notably a different feeling with it. So I like the regurgitation. I'm going to remember that now.
Yes, me too. Thank you, Maggie and Johanna. Let's, if we are up to it, close our eyes once again, briefly, and gently settle back into that peaceful foundation that we really are. Principle 11 of the Principles of Miracles states, prayer is the medium of miracles. It is a means of communication of the created with the creator. So let's continue to establish this communication that we have ongoing with the creator. Feel it, experience it. And it goes on to say, through prayer, love is received. And through miracles, love is expressed. That is a very succinct explanation for what needs to happen for us to keep this communication going. Let's receive the love of our father, of our mother, of our parent. Let's receive this love, become overflowing receptacles of this love. And as this love overflows inside out, let's be miracles of this love as we express this in any direction that we see, in any interaction that we have, even if it's with our own selves. This is who we are. This is who we are. We may open our eyes. Thank you for a beautiful discussion.